Be ready, Frank. Yo, ND. Just got done with the USC thrashing. I'm Jeff. This is Mike and Frank. We're going to talk about the Notre Dame game. Real quick, guys. Just going through our picks. Mike and I both had USC. We both took an L. Frank, you got the win. On our non-ND, and we're happy about that. On our non-ND, Frank, you lost. You had Colorado at 11.
I took a bad L Friday night.
Does that confirm all your reasons for not gambling right there? Could you imagine if you had money on that game and you're up 29-0 late and wake up the next day and they lost?
So I got into town Friday night just in time to watch that game. And it was 29-0 at halftime. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to bed. This game's over. Because Stanford ain't scoring 29 points. I got up the next morning. I couldn't believe it. I was like, so whatever.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens there with Dion in Colorado, because that is a bitter L. How are they going to rebound from that? So I had North Carolina minus 3.5. They covered against Miami. They just keep making money. I should have taken Penn State too. My God. And then Mike, you got the W. Tennessee, I think, won 20-13. You needed them by 3. So overall, Mike, you're 12-4. I'm 10-6. Frank is 9-3. I'm 4-4 on ND games. I'm at 500. Frank, you're 4-2. Mike, you are 6-2. In non-ND games, Mike, you are also 6-2. I'm 6-2. Frank, you're 5-1. So we're still killing it.
I should have taken Fresno.
Did they cover? I forgot what the spread was, and that game was tight, wasn't it?
So I think the spread was 4.5. They won by 5.
I thought it was 5.5, and they won by 5. I was like,
the spread shrunk then after we filmed Thursday, but
it's when we film. But The other thing is, you were thinking about Penn State. They covered. I looked in on the in the fourth quarter of that, and the spread was up to 63.5. So and they of course won 63-0. But anyway, let's just get right into the Notre Dame game. Awesome trip, Frank. I know it makes all the time you spend in a car every weekend a little more bearable when they thrash someone like that. So winning by 4 touchdowns, I never saw it coming. Kudos to Notre Dame, and I felt like all 3 phases played well. Let's just start off with, what do you guys think? I felt like everyone's making a big deal because Hartman didn't have huge numbers. What did he throw for? Like a buck 70 or something?
Buck 26.
Yeah. Right. But they never had the ball, and every time they did, it was a short field. And, the one time that they had to answer, he took them down the field, and it culminated with that bomb to Tyree. So I just thought it was a complete performance. But what do you think, Frank?
Kind of ironic. Notre Dame won this game for all the reasons I didn't think they could win this game.
Right.
I mean, in what world would you think that Notre Dame was going to be able to harass Caleb Williams to the extent they did? And then the defense gave us 3 short fields, and to what you just said, the offense did what they had to do. 3 turnovers, and they converted them all into touchdowns. And when you're playing another ranked team, that's a big hill to climb when you get that kind of jump. So, hats off to the defense. Still not sold on the special teams, although the kick return couldn't have come at a better time. I mean, that was huge.
That was the end of the game right there. That was it.
I'll tell you what, no disrespect to USC. I thought USC was a better team than this, but literally, it's Caleb Williams and a 6-6 football team. I mean, that's really what they are. I mean, when's the last time Notre Dame had 6 sacks in the game? I think it was 2019 Virginia, maybe. I was trying to think of that last night. And we hadn't seen this out of Notre Dame's defense all year.
For it to come against a quarterback like him is what's astonishing.
It's insane.
He is one of the most elusive players in the country, and he gets rid of the football. So
he's
insane.
Unbelievable. He did nothing to hurt his stock in my eyes. I mean, dude, that 4th and 1 who was it? Bertrand that tackled both Williams and the tailback. That kind of summed up the whole night. Like, Williams is unbelievable, but there's only so much you can do when there's a defender there with the football and you're in shotgun. I mean, he was running for his life the whole night. And Notre Dame did do a great job at containing him. There was only a few times where he was able to get outside the pocket. I mean, Watts ate his Wheaties before the game. Holy cow, my God, that guy was lights out. And that first pick was just huge to set the tone. And again, the parallels between the Clemson game last year are amazing. A special teams touchdown, setting the tone early, and then just pulling away late. Frank, what was the mood out there compared to Ohio State? I'm just curious because I know Ohio State was, obviously Notre Dame was still undefeated and at an all-time high, but
I mean, the crowd got into the game. I honestly think, it was virtually sold out, but I honestly think the crowd, there was a little bit of trepidation at the start of the game because after how Notre Dame had performed the previous couple weeks, and you're going against Caleb Williams, and anybody that knows anything knows the type of football player he is. But after Notre Dame turned him over that first time and got up 7-0, that got the crowd in the game. And slowly as that first quarter unwound, I think people really started to believe it was like, you know what, Notre Dame can play with these guys, and this is doable. They're not the monolith that we thought they were.
Not to nitpick here because obviously we had our doom and gloom episode after Louisville, so it's nice to be not as emotional after a Notre Dame game, especially versus a ranked team. But Mike, I'm going to save this for you. What went through your head with the last drive USC had before half? Because I'm sure you were like, here we go. We're going to give up points. And then the way they gave up the points. And again, I'm nitpicking. It was a great performance in my opinion, by the coaching staff overall. But that was another lackluster. Why call the timeout?
Because he didn't want to give him 5 yards.
But to me, it looked like they snapped the ball with 0 seconds left.
I didn't. I thought the timeout was a good timeout.
Why?
See, I didn't.
Because they were getting that play off.
Okay.
But they did.
But it's a penalty. So it's not like they're running the play, and they knew it was a penalty.
So take the 5 yards. They're getting the play either way. Take the 5 yards. But it doesn't matter.
No, you call timeout. You don't give them 5 yards. They're getting the play anyway.
They're kicking the field goal. It didn't matter. That's why the timeout is...
Yeah, so make it 5 yards longer. I thought that was... And to touch on Jeff's point, I'm going back to the post-game Louisville, because I'm getting a little blowback for my initial comment about Freeman being a loser. And I need to clarify that.
I think that's warranted.
No. Loser's a strong term. Loser's a strong term. I like the guy. His comments coming off at half at Southern Cal were exactly right. We need to grow up. So he's not a loser. He's 1,000 times better than Brian Kelly. I feel like everyone sets the bar at Brian Kelly. I set the bar at, are you going to win us a title or not? He's not going to win us a title. That's why I call him a loser.
I think it's too early to make that call.
You what?
I think that's way too early to make that call. And last night was affirmation of that.
Why?
Because
I'm going to tell you about last night. You beat Caleb Williams and a 6-6 football team, and they handed you points all night. Your offense did nothing.
But the offense did what they had. I agree, Mike. You were correct, but the offense did what they had to do. And to touch back on what Frank said earlier, you had those 3 turnovers. Granted, 2 of them were in the red zone. They still closed the door, but the other one was at like the 50-yard line and they punched it in.
Yeah.
They did what they had to do.
They did. The play calling still sucks. Your first 2 drives of the second half are throwing the football. What are you doing?
I agree.
And the minute you start running, your third drive, you start jamming it down their throat, and throw over the top, and it's 6.
I agree with that.
Well,
There's that,
you
That I
can't
and
do
you're
that
right
against
about
good
that.
football teams.
But is that execution too? Like their first drive of the second half, I thought that was a great call. They went bootleg, which how many times have we seen
And
that this year?
Hartman made the wrong decision.
he made a
Hartman
terrible
just got to
decision.
hit Stays 5 yards in front of him, and boom,
Yes.
we get a first down. We got instant momentum. It was a
Right.
bad choice, but the play call I thought was solid. The one thing that drives me crazy about them is they insist on running the football out of 12 and 13 personnel. I mean, and the book's out on them with that. And it showed last night. It's just Notre Dame got a push last night, and Audric Estime finishes every run leaning forward, and they just ground out 130 yards or whatever it was. But their running game's not dynamic, and I think that's because they're predictable by formation and personnel.
Just real quick, I want to go back to that timeout real quick. On TV, the clock was running. USC did line up, and they snapped it with zeros on there. This is why I disagreed with that timeout. I felt like they were not getting that snap off.
They would have given them that. I hear what you're saying.
And clearly Notre Dame players felt that way too.
How? You can't call an offsides when there's no time left.
Yeah, you're getting that call.
The time doesn't matter to them. This is like Michigan State in whatever year, where they kicked the game-winning field goal with no time left. They're getting that call.
I don't know.
It was just immaturity by Notre Dame, but by not recognizing the game situation.
Still shouldn't have called the timeout.
So
it's that.
And the bigger thing last night, if you want to nitpick, and I will, is the sloppy penalties last night that we had. I mean, when's the last time you saw offensive PI called twice on the same team in the game? And USC got legit. And they were legit. But the point is both times we had them backed up 1st and 25, and they got off the hook each time with inopportune penalties. And
yeah, but we knew going in they're going to do that. That's going to happen.
You said that, Frank.
But let's get back to the main point here, Mike, is your animus towards Marcus.
I like him. I like the guy a lot. I think he's a great guy. He stands for everything that we want, but it ain't going to happen.
Yeah, it is. His ceiling is higher than BK.
Okay.
So,
it ain't gonna happen.
But it can happen. And what you're seeing is a program that's a little bit immature right now. If you look, what's he coached? 21 games? So we've managed to beat Clemson and USC, who debate how good they both were, but they were both ranked. And yet we turn around and we lose to Marshall and Stanford, and we get pants by Louisville. And there's a little bit of a roller coaster right now with getting the team to play consistent week in and week out. There's no doubt about that. But the biggest thing I took away from last night, I was encouraged about how the team responded to a terrible week last week and summoned the energy and the motivation and went out and played overall great football against a quality opponent. And to me, that says to me the kids are buying into the program. They're buying into the coaches. There's a belief there. To me, that's all encouraging. There's other things. You got to tweak the coaching staff. I mean, that's stuff we could talk about. But these kids play for Marcus. And there's a little bit of leadership on that team. And they managed to turn the ship around pretty abruptly with that win last night. I find that all very encouraging.
Real quick, was USC's offensive line that bad, or is Notre Dame's defensive line, did they just turn it up last night?
They're bad.
Yeah.
USC's bad.
It was both.
Dude, Riley Mills played tough for people in high school.
You were right. USC, it just didn't feel like they wanted to hit at all. And then, I'm sitting there again. The last time I heard the weather, it was supposed to rain. It was going to be like low 40s, maybe into the 30s. And I'm looking. I'm like, God, it does not look that warm. Now I missed. They did say the temperature before kickoff. I didn't
It was
see it.
50. It was
52
nice.
or something. Right. So I'm like, what is going on with USC? And they were still bundled up. And then I look at the crowd, and I'm like, well, the crowd's not really bundled up. And the
Their
USC
fans were.
Well, how many fans did they have there? They don't travel well.
No, but there was the usual smattering. I mean, they bring their band, and they use their allotment of tickets, and they fly.
Did it rain at all?
Take the bus over. There was like one point in the third quarter where it drizzled for 5 minutes, and it was hardly noticeable. So no, the weather wasn't an issue at all. But
yeah, you guys got lucky. It looked nice.
To whatever extent, I don't think it bothered Caleb Williams. He's from D.C., but some of these people, both the players and the fan base, if you're living in the Southwest, last night was a little bit of a shock to the system, I think.
Speaking of shock to the system, Frank, how is that deer in Ohio?
Jesus. Dude.
What time was that at?
1:30 in the morning.
So you were in western Ohio?
Bryan County. 25 miles in.
Okay.
Every trucker watching knows exactly where that is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's apparently now I've come to realize like the Bermuda Triangle for deer. So, I mean, I might have to drive out I-70 next time.
There's no deer there.
Dude, this is in my head now. I've driven my whole life without hitting a deer, and now I've hit 2 in 11 months, and both of them have come at the conclusion of resounding victories in night games.
Who was it last year?
Clemson.
Oh, dude, this is like if they would have beat Ohio State, you would have hit a deer.
You would have hit a bear.
Yeah.
So if we play Alabama here in 8 years and it's a night game and we beat them, I mean, I may hit Godzilla on the way home.
You're gonna hit an elephant.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
How much did that hold you up?
You know what? Thankfully, it was pretty good. The saving grace was the car that I was passing hit him first and spun him in the air. But he literally landed on the hood of the car. And really, I got to tell you, shout out to Toyota Corollas. They take a punch and keep going.
It ran like normal.
Yeah.
After that.
No, the car was fine, but it's got a lot of cosmetic damage. I mean, the hood, it took a shot.
Did you come home I-80 or the Turnpike?
Believe it or not, I was concerned. I came home the Turnpike because after that happened, my biggest concern is, okay, we're fine. The airbags didn't go off. How far is this car going to make it? And you never know that till you get the first 50 miles. I looked under the car, nothing's leaking. So I'm like, okay, the radiator's intact. I'm like, okay. But you never know. You get 50 miles in, and, you're like, is that manure out in the field or is something burning in the car? And we got about 40 miles, and we started getting all these alarms on the car. And it was ABS, collision avoidance sensor failure. Go see your dealership immediately. I was like, well, that's ironic, But drivability-wise, the car was solid. It did good. So, I mean, it's just, I just can't believe it. I'm upset that it happened. But had I been driving like an idiot or something like that, there'd be some blame. I was doing 75 miles an hour. And if you guys know that road, that's not extreme. And I'm just putting along, because I'm not in a hurry to get home. And we won the game. Nobody's in a bad mood. I'm just putting along. I was like, I got all night. It's going to be a nice.
What were you listening to?
I was listening to ESPN radio, believe it or not. On Natalie's phone, because the cigarette lighter, and to tell you, the cigarette lighter in the car didn't work, so I didn't have my Sirius, and I couldn't use my radar detector, which is another reason I was driving the speed limit.
Did it work after you hit the deer?
No, no, it didn't. The electricals took a hit on the way home, but mechanically the car is solid.
So, yeah, that's pretty ironic that you waxed a deer after. Yet another parallel to last year's Clemson game. Frank hits a deer in Ohio with
in almost the same place. Because last year it was a mile from the Ohio line. So, literally the same area.
So, real quick, I know after the Louisville game, and obviously we were disappointed, we quote-unquote reassessed our season outlook here. So now the Irish are sitting at 6-2. Do you care to reassess it again? I know, Frank, you came down to my end because I said 8-4 preseason, and I stuck to 8-4. I still am. I'm not sold on Notre Dame. I think when they're playing at their top level, they do what happened last night, but I also think you could see them play a Louisville-type game versus somebody. So what are you guys thinking now? Now you're at 6-2 heading into the bye.
It's 10. I'm sticking with 10-2. I got the.
You think they're getting it done in Clemson?
Yeah.
That's a tall order, man.
Yeah.
Frank?
It's another flawed team.
Yeah, they are. You're right about that.
But it's still down there at night. It's Dabo. I mean,
yeah.
They took Florida State to the edge. You're going to have some receiver play.
Yeah, isn't it ironic we go from, Sam Hartman, he's a hell of a quarterback. We go from Drew Pine to Sam Hartman, and we can't throw a forward pass to someone not number 88.
Yeah.
Or 80.
So what's that tell you?
I don't know. It's the same group of receivers.
They're the common denominator here.
Right.
I mean, and we're reluctant to take deep shots.
I don't know why.
There's enough to be frustrated about with the offense because they're not dynamic and we expected them to be.
Thank God the defense is playing as well as it is.
Dude, I'll tell you what. That was the best defensive performance since Golden's been there. It's better than Clemson last year. Because Clemson, we just pound the ball and ran the clock out. Clemson was legitimate. That Caleb Williams, that kid's insane. I mean, even watching him live, the way he gets rid of the football, that touchdown pass they had, their last touchdown to Luke McRae, he literally sidearms it with his right arm back against the grain and sticks that ball in the only place it could go.
Yeah.
I mean, they coach kids not to do that because it's almost always bad news. And he took a chance and he squeezed it in there. That kid's the real deal. He just doesn't have a supporting cast. And I'll tell you the other thing that was ironic last night. The one thing that turned around 180 degrees was the tackling last night. Was so much better. I didn't think you could turn that around so quick. But, I mean, USC's receivers, no yards after catch last night. Very few. I mean,
the corners played really well. I mean, obviously Morrison, I mean, he just plays great. Even on plays where it somehow gets through, I'm like, he's there. Like, it's just a great throw and a great catch.
They're sticky.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought Harper played pretty well, too. Like, he was around the ball. I mean, he didn't have any huge plays or anything, but I just thought he was a kind of a gnat there. So, one question I asked myself last night was, if you would have told me before the Louisville game that you're going to go 1-1 over these next two, who would you rather beat, USC or Louisville? And I would have said USC.
Oh, yeah, all day long.
Louisville.
Yeah.
So it's just, I just thought it would be funny compared to this week's show right now compared to last week's show and our demeanor and how everything.
If they only would have won that game, Louisville, that one's gonna hurt.
Well, it is now when they go out, soil the bet against Pitt.
By 17.
And that wasn't even a doubt. And Pitt's playing their other backup quarterback.
Yeah, that Villara, the Penn State transfer.
And what? Sebo Fleminster was one of their primary ball carriers last night. I mean, and
I
they
feel
went
like
out.
Pitt's good for that every year, though. Like, Pitt they'll have someone who's hot coming in and they beat them at home. I mean, in 17, they beat Miami after they beat Notre Dame.
They are, but I mean, this is what makes the Louisville loss maddening, because they turn around and they do that, and then you think to yourself,
Plummer was
really
horrible.
He's not a good quarterback.
No, he was really bad, though. The game that we needed him to have last weekend happened at Pittsburgh. He was Plummer.
Well, that's because they didn't ask him to throw the ball last weekend.
Right.
They were able to run it, so you're not going to get mistakes out of him. Going into last week's game, that kid had thrown 6 interceptions in 5 games. The game plan worked out perfectly for Louisville because they didn't ask that kid to do anything risky, just manage the game, and that's what he did. And that starts with the running game, and that was the downfall last week. But, they're going. It's safe to say they're going 9-3.
At a minimum.
They can go down and beat Clemson. I don't think they're going to have any more letdowns. They can go down and play with Clemson, but I think it's arrogant to go down and just say, hey, we're just going to go down to Clemson and it's a night game in Death Valley and we're going to beat them. I think they can play with them, and I think this isn't the Clemson team in 2015, but this Notre Dame team's a little better than 2015. And I think they got themselves sorted out. They get a week off. You bounce back. You're going to have to play good football against Pitt because, like Jeff just said, Pitt's a pain in the rear. And they always give Notre Dame a hard time. And then it's Clemson. And after that, you should be able to handle Wake Forest. And,
yeah, Wake lost to Virginia Tech. They got...
And as long as you don't look at the Colorado tape, you'll handle Stanford. So...
What are we going to do this off week?
Relax.
We'll do a podcast.
Yeah. We should go all in.
We could delve into why Marcus Freeman's such a big L.
Penn State finally joins college football this weekend. It'll be their
They
first
better not win.
Playing a team with a pulse. They're not winning, Mike.
They can win that.
No, they can win that.
They can win that. Especially if they try and run the football. They can win that game.
Games won't do it.
Their D's legit.
Is it?
Yeah, their D's legit.
I think it is.
What offenses have they seen? Is it Northwestern?
It
Indiana?
doesn't matter.
How about Illinois?
They're overwhelming. People.
Delaware?
Yeah. I hear you. Their D's legit.
West Virginia. Would Notre Dame be 6-0 versus their schedule?
Yes.
Yes.
There's a lot of teams that would be 6-0 versus their schedule.
Yeah.
There is, and you could say the same thing about Michigan too, but
Michigan's schedule is worse than Penn State's.
This is where the rubber meets the road, and a lot of this gets sorted out. But there's a couple pretenders in the Big Ten.
But isn't it nice?
Ohio State, I'm sticking with them. I think they just kind of get better every week. They need to get their run game going.
Yeah, I think Ohio State's going to win. I'm saying Penn State can win this.
They can, but I'm anxious to see. Here's the one thing, the one consistent thing apart from yesterday. Penn State seems like they've had a lot of problems running the football this year.
Yeah, they choose not to.
But even when they run, Singleton and Keytron Allen, their yards per carry is pretty average given the talent level of those two. It's like they're just they're not getting a lot of clean running plays.
And again, they've played no one.
Well, and to that point, and I agree with that. And I just think you got to pack a running game when you play Ohio State and Michigan. I think you're playing with fire if you go in there and you can't run the football. and the whole game plan goes on your redshirt freshman quarterback, making the biggest start of his career.
I think Penn State has a better chance versus Michigan than Ohio State. I don't think they're going to touch Ohio State, but McCarthy is not having a good year, and they have played no one. Now, I don't know, obviously, how do you get up for playing ECU and Bowling Green and just loser after loser?
He might not have to throw a pass.
Agreed, and if he doesn't, and Harbaugh will prefer that too, and that's why they win games, because they're like, listen, we're just going to run until you force us not to.
And Michigan has playmakers. Michigan's got weapons on offense. You just haven't seen the numbers this year. So Michigan's legit. They just haven't been tested yet.
And they won't be till November 11th.
But you bring up a good point, though, because now that we're halfway through the season and getting past it, and you talk about the college football playoff and scheduling philosophies, this is for another episode. But you think about, had Notre Dame played that type of schedule up until this point, how much play would they be getting as a college football playoff contender?
Oh, a ton. They're the poll. I just saw they're the highest ranked 2-loss team. Like, they're respected.
They are because of their strength of schedule. But if they were undefeated against a much softer schedule, say at Penn State or Michigan, I think you'd hear a lot of naysayers coming out and talking. And I say that because I think it's hypocritical that people aren't saying the same thing at Penn State and Michigan right now. And it's because of the fact that they play in the Big Ten. And really, if you look at the Big Ten, it's 3 teams, and then it's Mid-Penn Commonwealth divisions, the rest of them.
Is it 3 teams, though? It's 2 teams for sure. Why are we automatically...
It's 3. Penn State's a good football team.
Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan.
Why? I mean, yeah, they're a good team.
They're a good football
team. They're not elite, but they're a good football team.
They're not elite. They should not be in the same level as Michigan or Ohio State.
But this is the year that people were pointing to them that they were going to take the next step and become elite.
I think it's next year.
So
is their swing. This year is not it. I hope I'm right. I could be wrong. I mean, if they go undefeated, then I'll shut up. But until they beat those teams, dude, they didn't beat a ranked team in the regular season last year.
I know.
Notre Dame has more wins against ranked teams this month than Penn State does in 3 years in the regular season. I believe, if you're going to count Iowa as a ranked win.
They're 6-1.
I mean, when they're 7-5, are we really like Louisville when they're 7-5?
Dude,
Iowa's horrible.
Iowa's 6-1, and they do it without playing offense.
And they're going to play for the Big Ten title with zero offense. Offense. That's how bad the Big Ten is.
So here's another one. We're talking about overrated teams. Here's another question. How good do you guys think North Carolina is? Because they're not getting a lot of talk either. They just very quietly.
Well, that's because ESPN controls everything, and they're in the ACC. That's all that is.
I mean, they got Florida State this week, I think. So, that'll be more of a litmus test. But, I mean...
Florida State's beatable.
Kudos to Mac Brown for what he's doing down there.
Yeah. Again, they haven't played any high-powered offenses, but the reason why I have been taking them is they are playing defense this year compared to last year. They're taking care of business. And the Miami game, they only won by 10, but that game was much worse. I think Miami scored, 10 points really late. That was like a 3-touchdown game the entire second half. So that was a beatdown. I love watching Cristobal lose. I don't know why I don't like him, but I just do not like him. And do you know what else? He did that exact, obviously everyone saw Georgia Tech. He didn't take the knee when they could have. He did that versus Stanford when he was at Oregon, I think in like 17 or 18. And Stanford completed a pass for like 20 yards the next play and then kicked a field goal with no time left to win it. The exact same thing 5 years later. That guy has learned nothing. And Mike, it goes back to your little rant. that coaches are dumb. Who's
They're
dumb?
dumb.
These people that keep hiring. Yeah, Willie Taggart, Brian Van Gorder, Cristobal. These guys are losers.
So speaking of overrated coaches, when's the seat heat up for Jimbo at A&M?
He's cost too much.
Yeah, they're 4-3 now.
He costs too much money. They're stuck.
But, dude, what's he been there? 4 years now? 4 or 5?
Yeah, I think
That girl from Michigan State call him up.
It was his first year was 18, right? Because he took Elko from us. So he's been there 18, 19, 20, 21. He's been there 6 years?
Yeah.
Yeah,
This is 6
he's
years.
been there 6 years. I'm not seeing the ROI on that.
No.
So
ATM.
and
They
that
tried buying
Tennessee game yesterday, I mean, Joe Milton couldn't throw a ball anywhere. And they eked out a win and grinded out. It's just like you keep waiting for Tennessee for Texas A&M to take the next step and, look like a powerful football team, and it doesn't happen.
I think Tennessee is Bama this week. Yeah,
That's going to be interesting.
No quarterback play. Terrible OCs.
But Alabama's got the best backup quarterback in the Big One. So
Is Buckner even the backup at this point?
I think he is. I assume
He might not even be the backup.
it's him or Ty Simpson.
Yeah, Ty Simpson.
Simpson's got the ceiling now. If they move on from Milrow or Milrow runs out of eligibility, I think Simpson's going to be the next guy up, or they would expect him to be. So
Milrow will be all right. They have offensive line problems.
yeah, and he's growing into the position. They're going to be okay. They're just struggling. And, you've gotten spoiled if you're an Alabama fan. I mean, what a run of quarterback success they've had the last, 8, 10 years?
Yeah.
Dude, look at
Between
Oklahoma.
Bryce Young, Mac Jones, and Tua. I mean, holy cow. So now they just got a good quarterback instead of the league quarterback.
Yeah. Anything else you guys want to add about the USC game?
No, big win. It saved our season, and I'm very happy with the way the team responded. That wasn't smoke and mirrors. They got deficiencies, but they came out and they punched USC in the mouth. And the manner in which they won is more important than the fact that they won the game. The way they did that matters.
After watching last night, it ticks me off about Louisville even more.
It does, and that's why I said it's an immature program. And what's the difference right now? And I was thinking about this last night. Once Kelly had his 2016 season, the one thing you give him credit for is he did two things extraordinarily well the remainder of his time at Notre Dame. He beat the teams he was supposed to beat, and by and large, he held serve at home. And that translated into a run of 10-win seasons. Notre Dame in year 2 under Marcus, they're not quite at that yet. They got to get back to that level, but they're taking steps in that direction. And it's an experience issue right now. But I would still argue every day of the week the ceiling for Notre Dame right now is higher than it was under Kelly. Because after 12 years of Kelly, you knew it wasn't going to happen with him. You were going to win 10 games. You were going to have a good program. And I think Kelly saw that too. So Notre Dame rolled the dice on an inexperienced coach with a lot of upside and a lot of charisma. And you just got to give it time. There's some growing pains. And this is some of the good stuff you see that offsets the bad stuff we saw last week.
Mike, you got anything you want to add?
He ain't winning a title.
Okay, there it is.
And it's not all his fault. There's 1,000 reasons.
Yeah.
There's 1,000 reasons, but
I could
That
get
sounds
behind
like an
that more
awkward
than just
podcast.
trashing Freeman.
I'm not trying to trash Freeman. That's what I'm saying. I'm
No,
not.
I know. I'm
Yeah.
just clarifying that. Like
Yeah.
that is the administration and all the other stuff that those hurdles you gotta get over that you don't at LSU. That quote
There-
Kelly had where if you want to build like an architectural building at Notre Dame, that's taking priority. At LSU, it's not. And I was like, it's great. Everyone knew that already, so don't sit there and slam Kelly for saying that. It's the truth. Everyone knows it. But it is funny just to hear a guy in his position say that.
But
I thought
He's an idiot for saying that.
he's an idiot.
He's at LSU.
because here's the other thing. At least at Notre Dame, he had that excuse, and
Yeah.
everybody that was signing his check gave him a pass for it. Well, it's mid-season, and you got 2 losses already at LSU. Now you got no excuses because you're basically saying, I get everything I want and everything I need. Well, I don't
Dude,
know.
What the
So
hell's
now,
going on?
so now what do you do? Look in the mirror? Because that's the only place left to turn.
Yeah, he won't do that. He won't do that. What is going on at Auburn? How bad is Auburn?
We look like the air raid Houston days compared to them throwing the football.
Speaking of Houston, did you see that ending versus West
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
What in the?
Yep.
And you know what? Going back to what we were just talking about, who's that loss hurt? If it
Oh,
comes
yeah,
down
big
to
time.
brass
State.
tacks.
That's why I was rooting for Houston.
Absolutely.
I mean, listen, West Virginia is losing 5 games this year. There's no way around it. They do not have a good coach. He's bad. But yeah, that was insane. All right. If you guys are done, if there's anything you want to add up, let's wrap it up.
No, big win.
Big win. Go Irish. Bye week this week. You will be hearing from us. Like, comment, subscribe. And we'll see you later.